was really in that moment that I realized so much of the weight that I had on me was like energetic weight. It wasn't related to food, wasn't related to my nervous system, but it was related to like all of these imbalances of energy that I was holding on that wasn't mine to carry.
Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome back to SoulPodcast, Light Beings. So excited to be diving into another journey of awakening with this very beautiful Jiordana Saade, who is a clinical nutritionist, hypnotherapist, and founder of the Mindful Clinic. With a degree in behavioral psychology, she's a top expert in eating behavior and is also a TEDx speaker on understanding what it means to have a healthy relationship with food. So today we're going to dive into her story, her awakening journey, how her gifts have emerged from her experiences with spiritual development. And I'm so honored and excited to have you on, Jordana. Welcome.
The honor is mine. Thank you so much.
Amazing. So we're both Virgos, so we're both very earthbound healer vibes here today. So I would love to start with, the beginning of your story and kind of like pre-awakening Jordana and how we talked a little bit about like this pain to purpose experience and unfolding. So I'd love for you to just take us back to pre-awakening Jordana.
Yeah. What's funny about that question is I actually think that Jordana, I'll speak for myself, or maybe this is souls in general, but I actually think like I started awake and then like through the pain kind of like became unawake and like fragmented, which actually forced me to find that awakening again. So obviously I'll start with my story, and my story starts when I was very, very young. So I was an obese child. This was like more than 30 years ago. So obesity rates were very low at that time. And, my mom is an Italian chef, and this isn't to like put blame on her at all, but like the way that she shows love is through food. And so the only way that
we love Italian food.
Yes, it's like a 24/7 Italian buffet at my house. And so, I'm going into this like school system where I don't look like any of the other girls. I don't have any friends. Not only am I overweight and of course ridiculed, but like my hair is thick and curly. And this is in the era of like, I live in a very like Aryan neighborhood. So like blonde, blue-eyed, very thin. And so I'm very ostracized. And basically when I was 8 years old, I was playing tag at recess and I had a crush on this boy, and I ran and I tagged him, and in front of the whole school, he yelled, "Fatty caught me." And I was just like
brutal,
mortified, Yeah. And it had been years of like not fitting in, years of like not really liking myself, but it was that moment that I just decided like enough, I'm going to take this into my own hands. And so that was the day that I decided to go on my very first diet. And I had no idea what a diet meant. I just knew the more I ate, the bigger I got. And so I just started to starve myself. Like I would throw my lunches away. I would pretend like I had stomach aches. And, I did lose quite a bit of weight as an 8-year-old. And what happened was I received a lot of validation and attention. And so all of a sudden I had friends. The cutest boy in school started talking to me. My doctor was proud of me. My parents were proud of me. And it really just solidified that being thin meant I was lovable and being overweight meant I wasn't, which like spiraled into decades of eating disorders and then eventually substance abuse, which the original purpose of using substances, I think, was one, to escape myself because I was obviously very unhappy with who I was, but two, like the codependent bonus of that was it kept me very thin. And so I'm 21 years old at this point. I'm kicked out of university. I have a very severe cocaine addiction and I'm an alcoholic, and I get pregnant. That baby just like saved my life because I could no longer use any of these substances substances, but the one thing that came back with full force and where it all started was this really unhealthy, addictive relationship to food. And so in that pregnancy, I gained like a lot of weight, like more than most pregnant women should. Like I gained like 80 pounds. And I was like, enough. I got to get down to the bottom of this eating disorder. So I'm going to become a nutritionist. So I went back to school to become a nutritionist, graduated as valedictorian. And I'm working in this like obesity clinic with this medical doctor, and I'm handing out meal plan after meal plan, and like nobody's getting any better. Because the truth is, I think we all know that an apple is healthier than a chocolate bar, right? But some people choose the chocolate bar anyways, over and over again. So I became obsessed with understanding like the inner networks of self-sabotage, especially when, you know, as a human, as an individual, nobody wants to be overweight. Nobody wants to be broke. Nobody wants to be addicted, right? But we continue to make these choices that lead us down these paths to unhappiness. So I went back to school to study behavioral psychology and neuroscience, and this is like really where I started to put the pieces together. Once I understood the nervous system and how it works and all of the neurochemicals, and really healed my own relationship to my body and my nervous system and myself, it was so profound. I was like, I have to share it with people. That's where I built my business. Now, there was like multiple kind of like mini awakenings throughout that, but I think the biggest awakening for me was I have this booming business. I'm teaching women all over the world how to love their bodies and how to break free from binge eating and emotional eating and lose weight without dieting. And I get pregnant with my second child. And after I had her, the weight would not come off at all. I'm doing all the things right. Like I know what to do, right? I'm doing all the nervous system stuff. I'm doing all the nutrition. Like I know what to do. It's not coming off. So I'm like, there's something more here. And that's when I started to, well, first of all, I hired she's a naturopath, but like she does like soul surgery. Like she's very intuitive, very energetic. And I had her work with me from like a naturopathic way. And she started to do these exercises with me through meditation. And it was really in that moment that I realized so much of the weight that I had on me was like energetic weight. It wasn't related to food, wasn't related to my nervous system, but it was related to like all of these imbalances of energy that I was holding on that wasn't mine to carry. And that was probably the biggest, like most profound moment where I was like, oh my God, there's something more here that we can't see. And not to go back, sorry, this is so long-winded, but you know, like as a child, I was very, I'm going to use the term witchy, but like just for lack of a better word, but like I remember at a very, very young age, like having very big questions, questioning like who I am and why I'm here. As an adult, all of those little practices that I had as a child kind of started to come back, and it created the structure and the business and the practices that I use now for good.
It's such a powerful story. And I think there's so many people that could resonate with many aspects of that story. I would love to loop back on if you have any additional thoughts on like the energetics of addiction as like an energy, and that energy can manifest, as many of us know, in all kinds of different ways, whether it's food addiction, whether it's substance addiction. And I love that you mention the energetic weight versus like the difficulty with the physical and the obviously like the very practical elements of losing weight. But the energetic weight, I think, is such an important element to point out, because a lot of times, especially for those of us who've been doing spiritual work and meditation and breath work and really focusing on our energetic inner system health as far as mental, spiritual, emotional health, that I think is such an important element. And it sounds like your journey led you to like really optimizing the physical, all these different types of optimizations. And then it delivers you into the more subliminal, the more subtle realm of healing. And that's fascinating to me that you come into this space of realizing there's something more, there's something deeper going on. And it takes courage. Did it feel like it took courage? I mean, it sounds like it took courage across your entire journey, but how did that, like discovering the spiritual gifts and turning those gifts on, like affect the rest of your journey?
Okay. So, but all incredible questions. So the first that I want to address, because I think it's very important, is the energetics of addiction and what addiction really is. And you said it perfectly. It's not just about food. It's not about the substances. It's not about the sex or whatever the like addiction is. People can be addicted to worry. It's the biggest addiction that we can have, like addiction to worry. And so what addiction really is it attachment, right? And we can think about these attachments as like entities, like dark entities, or we can think about it as like us being attached, like physically attached to something that doesn't resonate with like our highest self. Well, why would we ever want to attach ourselves to something? right? The only reason why we would ever like grasp onto something is because we've become separate from ourselves. You know what I mean? Because if we are completely whole, and if we are completely safe, and if we are completely like in alignment, for lack of a better word, like there's no reason to attach ourselves to anything. We have everything, right? And so I really believe, like, first of all, I believe that, you know, when we're in recovery from addiction, it's called recovery for a reason. We are recovering ourselves, right? That's Dr. Gabor Mate. I can't take credit for that one. It's brilliant. But I do believe this addiction is really that like attachment to something else because we have separated from who we really are. And so hopefully that answered that. Secondly,
yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Secondly, the energetics of weight. This is so cool because, you know, I believe I'm a projector. I know we talked a little bit about human design before, but as a projector, like my gift is to kind of, I'm like the lighthouse. Like I turn on my own light and then all the boats that need me come to me. And so in different phases of my own expression of my gifts, I've had different types of clients. And so now the types of clients that come to me really don't have an issue with eating. Like they know what's healthy, what's not, that's easy for them. They do the exercise, etc., but the weight still doesn't come off. And so when we think about like what our energetic body is, like think about your physical body, right? Your physical body, for lack, you know, there are different, your energy does extend out, but it's literally protecting like your soul, like who you are. And so one of the biggest things that I look for when it comes to energetics of weight loss is, are you saying yes when you want to say no? Like, are you people pleasing? Are you self-abandoning? Because every time that we abandon ourselves to keep peace, to keep love, to keep attachment to somebody else, we literally, we're unsafe. We need to protect ourselves. So the body builds a protective layer. And like what adipose tissue really is it is this protective, like, I'll save it for later energy. It protects us from the external world, and ultimately actually also protects you from you, because you're the one who's like abandoning of self. So there's so many different, I would say, root causes to the energetics behind like weight gain and obesity. Hands down, lack of boundaries and like not being able to like be authentic to who you are for fear of whatever is like a huge one. Another one is fear of being seen. Like if you're afraid to really be seen,
that's a big one. Yeah.
You know?
I've noticed that with people in my own life and people I've worked with, is that protection element seems to be huge, especially for women and trauma. And I think Mate talks about this too, is that weight gain as a protective mechanism, especially for childhood traumas. That makes so much sense. And just to double click on something you said that I think is so important, especially for our listeners, is this wholeness that you are, like you mentioned at the beginning, like we're already whole. We're already this beautiful, luminous soul and being. In the human experience, we have our work, which are these facets to refine about ourselves so that we can remember who it is that we are. And the work that we're talking about here are those different facets, and addiction is one of those facets. And then as you refine that, then it seems like the healing journey shifts. And it's so cool that you're mentioning that your clients have shifted as you've awakened more and more. So that's really beautiful. I would love to hear more about, in your spiritual practice, if you're willing to share.
Yeah.
What did you have moments? It sounds like you were a witchy kid, which I love. Did you have moments in your personal spiritual journey where you felt yourself merging more and more with your oneness, and any kind of mystical experiences maybe that you had that have contributed to activating your gifts on your journey?
I don't know if this is going to fully make sense. Even as a kid, I just hear I hear my voice in my head all the time. And my parents always used to be like, who is she talking to? And I'm like, I'm talking to myself. Like, I'm just like, it's like there's this constant like chatter that happens in my head. And when I started to become more interested in like clairvoyance, clairaudience, etc., I was under the impression that when I'm channeling guides or when I'm listening to somebody else's, whether they're guides or spirit team or whatever, I thought I was going to hear other voices. Like I thought it was going to be like this is a man's voice or whatever. And so for the longest time, I just thought like, well, I don't have it. But something really cool happened. And I mentioned this before, but when I started working with this mentor, she would have me go, and I was already a hypnotherapist, but this was different than hypnotherapy, what she was doing. She was really working on like my chakras and my energy bodies without me knowing it. And she was using her own like mystical gifts to help heal me. So she would be like, it's your kidney, it's your liver. Like, that's what we need to work on. I'm like, how the fuck do you know this shit? Anyways, she, through doing the exercises and like the meditations and stuff that she taught me and really connecting to who I am, and a lot of that was within like the feminine, like reconnecting to my femininity and working on the feminine and masculine balance. I was working with a client one time, and I remember I was doing a meditation with her, or like a hypnosis with her. And throughout the hypnosis, I heard my own voice. It's like my own voice. And it was like, ask about her dad. And because I was around her sacral area, and I was like, her dad just came through. So when we finished the hypnosis, I was like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with your dad? And she's like, oh, I had a wonderful relationship with my dad, and he was the most amazing man in the world. And I'm like, okay, so clearly I'm like, I don't got it. But there was something just nudging me. So it kept nudging me. It was like, just keep going, just keep going. And I'm like, there's something about there's something about male energy that feels a little bit tense. Have you had any like sexual experiences that might not have felt great? And she's like, oh yeah, well, sorry, trigger warning for sexual assault. But she was like, oh yeah, like I was raped 2 years ago. And I was like, okay, well, but so what this whole experience taught me was that those little nudges that I get are not actually just me bullshitting. These are like, I'm downloading things. And once I recognized that, even though like it wasn't about her dad, but it took me to where I needed to get to, I started to really trust this inner voice. And then I started to, meditate with that voice and listen to it a lot more. And the stronger and more practice I had, really like listening to it and hearing, the easier it is for me to download. And so now when I'm in a call with a client, they don't even have to talk to me. I'm like right over it. Like I just know. I hear it, I see it, or I feel it, but I just know. And it just took me trusting that bullshit for me to like get there.
Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite topics, is like learning to trust your intuition. It feels like bullshit at the beginning. You're like this, and it's also a worthiness journey too, right? There's trust in there, and then there's worthiness of like, could I have such a connection to my higher self or your guides or whoever it is that you're channeling to be able to bring in this information that I shouldn't otherwise have the capacity to access, So for me, it's been definitely a journey of trust. I totally resonate with, it starts off small and then you're kind of like trying to figure it out. And then at some point you get affirmation. You're like, oh, I was onto something here. And then the more that you're trusting that, the easier it becomes to access, like you mentioned. And then I wonder if this has been your experience. It's like there's a spiritual gift that evolves, and then there's another one, and then there's another one, and there's like these different channels of activations that can happen. What do you think? We mentioned trust, we mentioned worthiness. Do you think there's anything else in your experience that helped you to activate those spiritual gifts, your intuition, your really medical mediumship is what it sounds like to me as well? Do you think were you committed to a meditation journey? Do you think it was other people helping you activate it as well? Was it mostly your own kind of inner work? What do you think?
I think it's all of the things you just said, as in like, when I don't meditate daily, I can tell. Like I'm not connected, Yeah. And then I let all the actual bullshit of the day that's around me kind of get in between like the truth of like the really like who I am, the light. This might sound a little bit like presumptuous, and so I hope it doesn't come across this way, but one of my biggest wounds is I'm not chosen. I've seen it all through time. I'm not chosen to go to that birthday party. This boy isn't choosing me. And what's interesting is that in my parents, like my dad both my parents were married and then got divorced, found each other. My mom's car broke down, dad's a mechanic, cutest love story ever. Found each other, and like my mom got pregnant at like 47, and this was like more than 30 years ago. So this was like a total freak pregnancy. She thought she was going through menopause. My dad did not want any more kids. And so there's this heavy energy around me of like, I'm not chosen. Now, my dad's Palestinian, and obviously like, I'm not going to get into politics. I'm very neutral on both sides, but like there's a lot to do with like that land and that land, the chosen people. And there's just like this long lineage of like not chosen energy. And so I think the thing that probably had the most profound impact on me being able to access my gifts was I saw a friend of mine. She's very intuitive. This is before I even met that mentor. And she was like, you are gifted. Like you have star energy. And Me actually recognizing that, like, wait a second, I am chosen and I am gifted. And it's that, like, I'm special, like, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of owning that I think,
I
like,
love it. I love it.
Gave me the confidence to then trust that inner voice and so forth.
That's so beautiful. That gives me full body chills. I just stepping into your worthiness, stepping into you being a blessing, that allows your gifts to come forward and to really be who it is that you came to be in this lifetime. So it's the most powerful journey. I would love to hear more about, you mentioned I think clairsentience, clairaudience. Could you give your kind of definition of those abilities and how you work with them?
Yeah. So I'm definitely not an expert in the types of clairs, but clairaudience is that I hear, right? Like you download through hearing. Clairsentience is I feel. Clairvoyance is I see. And truly, for me, I think there are a few more clairs. Like there's like an I smell or I touch or so forth. But for me, those three are my most prominent. Hearing is definitely the biggest one for me. There are some clients that I work with where, like, I just see it so perfectly. Like I see a picture, and it's like
in your mind's eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with some other clients, like they'll say something and it just doesn't resonate, or like I'll feel it in my solar plexus, or I'll feel it like somewhere in my chest, and not as if I'm taking on their pain, because hopefully I'm protecting myself well enough. But each one comes through differently, and I think that the person that I'm working with kind of guides that experience for me. Like I'm kind of just like the open channel at that point.
Yeah, you're receiving.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you're a hypnotherapist. I don't think we've had a hypnotherapist on the podcast, so I would love to hear more from you about how you think about hypnotherapy and any intersection with spirituality and how you think this is helpful.
Okay. So you know the term mesmerized? That comes from Dr. Mesmer, who is like one of the founders of hypnotherapy. I don't know that I've met a hypnotherapist that hasn't gone into the ether a little bit in the spirituality world. You know, it's clinically not necessarily spiritual. Like it's very clinical and can be measured somewhat. But if we look into the history of it, there are a few different founders that it looked a little bit more like magic than it did like anything clinical. Where in this one story, I can't remember if I think it was Dr. Mesmer, somebody was hurt and he like got a stick and almost like a magic wand, he used the stick as a conduit and he put it towards the leg and he really put all of this energy into, you know, the leg is going to get better. It's feeling better and better every second. Oh, can you feel the healing happen? Like, and he's like essentially giving suggestions to this woman. And because the human brain is highly suggestible, like think about propaganda, etc., that person either accepts and internalizes those suggestions, which tells the nervous system to send signals to the body to do whatever it has to do, right? Which is the clinical part of it. Or a person can willingly not accept it. And so one of the first things that I always say with hypnotherapy is it's not mind control. Like nobody can make you like go and murder somebody or steal, or that's like a huge misconception. There has to be acceptance of the suggestions and like trust between the practitioners. But all hypnotherapy really is it's really getting the nervous system into a theta brainwave state, which is like, if we think about the brain, we have like our critical brain and then we have our subconscious brain. Or our conscious brain and our subconscious, and in between we have this critical filter. And the critical filter is like this bodyguard, right? So think about the bodyguard in front of the bar. And when we get the brain into a theta brainwave state, it's like tipping the bouncer $20. It gives us a little bit of a leeway into the subconscious mind so we can reframe and retrain and create new stories and identities and narratives that move more towards the thing that we want versus like pushing away the thing that we want. Did that answer your question?
Oh, that's so good. I love the idea of the critical filter being a bartender that you're tipping.
Bouncer, you're like,
oh yeah, not the bartender, the bouncer. That's so great. Yeah, I have done hypnotherapy, I think one time in the context of a past life regression. And that was exactly my experience. It was like I could feel the walking down into this other kind of conscious realm. And it was interesting. I don't know if you hear this from other people, but at least for me, when I was going through that kind of walk down, I was seeing so much in my mind's eye. It was like people's faces that I had never known. It was like flashing. It was just like so much information as I was walking down into that state. And it was different for me than what I've experienced in meditation as far as the experience itself. And it was almost like I was flipping through pages of a book. And maybe this has to do with the past life part of it, but
Totally.
But it was a very interesting state of consciousness. And for me, it felt almost like you're going, like if you're a scuba diver or snorkeling, you can feel yourself going lower and lower and lower. And for me, there was a little bit of fear that happened when I was getting down pretty deep. Almost like you could look up at the surface and know that maybe it would take you some effort to get back up. And that's where the trust and the guidance and like softening and surrendering into the experience. And it was absolutely profound and really fascinating. But yeah, it's a really powerful state to get into that theta brainwave, which is more creative, right? It's more open and suggestible.
Yeah. That was definitely specific to past life regression.
Yeah.
Especially because there's so many different like stages of hypnotherapy that you can be in. The one that I work with most is behavior change. And so if we're going to change the behavior, we actually don't want to be so deep in the waters. Like we want the brain to be like a little bit conscious and we can like create new like beliefs. Past life regressions are so fun though, because you basically need to not have a conscious, like you can't want to understand why this like random face is coming at you that you've never seen before but feels familiar. Like, and how you know that it's your grandfather like twice removed. And so that is very much so you went really into the depths of like expanding beyond this timeline, this here and now, and like the records of what exists.
Yeah, it was fascinating. But with the work that you do with behavioral change, how do you typically see this evolve with your clients and in these sessions?
Yeah, it's changed so much. Like it really did start out with such clinical like Virgo brain hypnotherapy. Okay, and I'm going to bring you now down into a theta state. And okay, so if it's food or if the client is struggling with late night eating, we would create a script and visualizations around not late night eating or being repulsed by food after 8 p.m. or whatever it is. But now it's so different. Like now really when I'm using hypnotic states with clients, it is to either go into a past life and understand where the attachment started. Or it's to be able to connect that individual to the higher parts of themselves where they are fully pure, innocent, whole, and none of the like suffering, the human suffering exists.
Beautiful. Yeah, it seems like such a journey of self-love, of really dialing that up. And it sounds so kitschy and cliche, and we talk a lot about it a lot on the podcast, but that self-love component is huge. It's the biggest component of our spiritual journeys, because like you mentioned before, when we're in that love, when we're in that wholeness, these attachments, I was just talking about this with somebody, that we can heal in a lot of different ways. Like there's so many different ways to heal. One of the ways though is as you move into these higher levels of consciousness, or you expand into love, and however it is that you're doing it with meditation or whatever the modality. But as you expand into love, it almost like dissolves without you really needing to know the story of the trauma or the trigger, or a lot of times it's in our subconscious and we don't know the story of it. So it's so interesting to me, at least in my personal experience, that the more I bring that love, that wholeness into my journey, it just dissolves some of that stuff. I'm like, oh, it's just not there anymore. Or something releases in my body that who knows what it was tied to, but now it can go because the love has been invited in. And I think you mentioned this before when we were talking about this process that you're helping people with is really for them to fully enter their body in love. This releases the attachment. And it seems like to me, the work that you're doing is so, so important, because you're like bringing the body along for the journey of the evolution of consciousness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, so Virgo being the 6th house rules the body. So I couldn't, and maybe you excluded, I won't make any assumptions here, but almost every Virgo I've ever met, especially because there's so much self-criticism, has had eating disorders or issues with their body or digestive system issues. Like it's so rooted in Virgo energy. So I was never going to escape being like working with the body. It's kind of like you work with it or you work against it, for me anyways, just based on my story. But I always joke and say, you know, when I'm done with this human experience, like I'm not choosing to come back here. Like I'm like, I've had enough. I get it. I'm staying up in the ether, please and thank you. But the reality and the truth is, like, we are here having a human experience, and therefore we have to work with very human things. We have to work with our bodies. Like, this is our physical home. We have to work with money, even though we don't want to necessarily. We have to work with other people. Like, this is the human experience we're having, and we can either like do it with resistance and kicking and screaming, or we can bring it along with us. Not even energetic or spiritual, but like from a very clinical and scientific perspective, the body follows the mind. Like, if you're walking on the street and you stub your toe, you don't feel that pain unless the nervous system tells you that hurts, right? And so everything that we do, like, there's so much criticism on the body, and, you know, gotta burn calories and cut down carbs, and this focus, this hyperfixation on like changing the body, when in actual reality, it starts from your thoughts, it starts from your emotions, it starts from your energy, which then directs the body how to behave. And so for me, and what I love doing is really bringing the two components together and finding this level of like, okay, I don't expect you to look in the mirror and love what you see every day. I sure shit don't. Like, not every day, I'll tell you that much. But like, but wherever you're at on your journey, I don't expect you to look in the mirror and be like, I love this version of me. It would be inauthentic, right? But can we see beyond this physical, and can we have acceptance for like, okay, this is my life, my story, my energy has brought me to this moment now. I see my light. I know how powerful I am. And like, I also know deep down that I'm meant to thrive, not just survive, you know? And that's where like the real magic happens.
I love that. Meant to thrive. Yes. Yeah. For me, being a Virgo, the body has been a big part of my journey. I think mostly in the context of illness. So I've always been like, okay, I'm doing all this work, all this spiritual work. Why am I still having such a body kind of like challenge, you know? And I don't know if we talked about this before, but I had a pretty severe illness 5 years ago. And that was a huge spiritual portal for me to develop a new relationship with my body. And the thing that I had to give up in that process was the belief that I could control everything biologically. Like, I studied biochemistry, I worked in biotech, and I thought if you have enough information, you can heal yourself of pretty much anything. But that belief was really rooted in the physical. I mean, it was really rooted in the linear. And so when I was confronted with this experience of my body feeling like it was failing me, and I had to develop some other resources and a different relationship with my body. And it's so interesting. It sounds counterintuitive, but I was a little bit of a hypochondriac before that happened. And you'd think with severe illness that I would be more maybe of a hypochondriac now, but I'm actually not. Like, it released that need to control in such a big way, because I was like, well, I can't. I had to just surrender at some point. And then what came forth into that experience was so much more powerful than anything in the physical, that it like re-engineered my relationship to my body. And still something I'm working on every day. Like you mentioned, like there's some days where I'm like, okay, what's this pain? Why is it here? What do I do about it? Ibuprofen. But it's interesting that there's this higher relationship with the body. And the awakening process, I really view as like how much of your soul, your highest self, this voice that you're talking about that seems so wise and so powerful, how much of that can you bring into the human? Like, I call her my human crystal. And it's also funny that you mention, you're like, I'm not coming back. Because you're like, I'm good. Like, that's been also my feeling, is that I want to fully self-realize in this lifetime.
Yeah.
That is a priority. What do I need to do to get there? And then you realize, you're like, oh, I'm asking for a lot. If I'm going to fully self-realize in this lifetime and not come back, hang out in whatever other realm of consciousness that's next, it's like it's quite the journey. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Godspeed. Yeah.
Godspeed. I know. But it's just more and more love. It really is. And how much can you let go of into that So this has been such a powerful conversation, and I hope really helpful for those who are working through refining facets of their healing in their bodies, in their minds. So where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Yes. So I'm primarily live on Instagram. I have TikTok, but I don't use it often. So sorry. But I have a website. I have a podcast. It's called The Mindful Method. We're launching an app at the end of this month, which is very exciting. So, Instagram probably first and foremost, then podcast and website.
Amazing. And we will link that for our listeners as well. And then we like to close with a rapid fire session. So we've got a couple questions here. All right. The first one is, what is one belief that you no longer believe?
Ooh, okay. That I have to push or work hard to receive money specifically.
Love it. What do you believe consciousness is?
So if I'm going to go the route of like consciousness, meditation, spirituality, to me, consciousness is really it's the awareness. It's really not just the awareness of like your surroundings, but the awareness of who you are and all what's going on inside your own narrative. And then also having awareness around everything around you.
Beautiful. Love it. And this is similar, connected, but different. What is source, God, oneness to you?
This is a really hard one for me. I really spend a lot of my time thinking about this. I believe that it is the ultimate light of energy. When I think about source, I think about the entire universe, and then that entire universe, if it was engulfed into one pinpoint, it is that source. I believe that like I am also source creator. I believe it like lives within me, and I am just like made out of the stars and sun and the moon. But it's this ultimate high frequency, high vibration of like where everything is and comes from in alignment.
Love it. And imagine that it's 100 years in the future. What do you hope for humanity?
I think it's already happening. There's like something going on. I'm very, very into astrology. Every person, like obviously I'm interviewing on my podcast too, but every awakened individual who's conscious that I've talked to has been like, it's been like a tower moment of a year. Like this year, just something is shifting, and like really feel like it's calling the individuals who are aware and conscious to this. It's really calling us up, and it's asking us to step up and evolve. I heard this crazy statistic, but it was like with one awakened person, like that person can affect, I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like 100,000 people or something like that, 200,000 people maybe, maybe you know it, but it's like, okay, if we can all stand in that, and it does take courage, and it does take work, and it does take like, it's almost like a responsibility. If we can stand in that, then I believe that like human consciousness is like really gonna elevate on a collective level. And I think it's like really happening.
I totally agree. I feel that too. Jordana, this has been so fun to chat with you today. Thank you for coming on Soul Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been great. Stay tuned for more light beings, and we'll be back next time.
Thank you for journeying with us today, light being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we'd love to offer you even more spiritual guidance and daily rituals. This week, we launched the biggest update since SoulPod first hit the App Store. To celebrate, we're offering you a free month of SoulPod with the code Step Into the Portal. Your SoulPod home has been completely reimagined with even more ease, more rhythm, and more room to grow. Now you can revisit past journeys, save your favorite rituals, and build personalized playlists that move with your energy. And at the heart of it all, portals. Portals are guided mini journeys, flexible, soulful spaces designed to meet you right where you are. Beginners welcomes you into the heart of soulfulness, no experience needed. Soulscapes offers looping soundscapes for solo self-guided practice. And Integration holds you gently after transformation, offering grounding and expansion. Download the app or tap the link in our show notes to begin. We'll see you inside.